It was supposed to be just another Thursday. The kind of day that slid by unnoticed, the way Mia liked it. Rain drizzled against the tall glass windows of the campus cafe, soft and constant like a background melody only the quiet people heard. Mia adjusted her oversized glasses, the left side slipping slightly from the weight of the tape she'd used to fix it that morning. Her cardigan, gray, stretched at the sleeves, smelled faintly of books and peppermint tea. She was halfway through a banana muffin and page 314 of a dense algorithms textbook when she noticed the phone. It sat on the edge of the table beside hers, sleek, black, unmistakably expensive. The kind of phone that didn't just cost money, it declared it. Mia looked around. No one was at the table. No one seemed to be searching for anything. The person who sat there was gone. She hesitated. A phone like that didn't get left behind. At least, not by accident. It could belong to anyone, a professor, a student, a visiting lecturer. But Mia's fingers moved on their own, gently sliding the device toward her. The lock screen lit up. No passcode. Strange. Mia's heart began to race. She glanced around again, as if someone might accuse her of theft just for touching it. Then she took a breath and opened the calendar app. A full schedule blinked at her. Meetings. Locations. Acronyms she didn't understand. One name stood out. Rachel Winters, Boardroom A, 10 a.m. Mia blinked. She knew that name. Everyone in her computer science department knew that name. Rachel Winters wasn't just anyone. She was the youngest CEO in tech history, founder of Winters Labs, and the keynote speaker at the conference last semester. There is a story, half myth, half admiration, about how she'd rewritten a core system function in the middle of a live demo after it crashed. Mia had watched the recording twice, heart pounding. She remembered how calm Rachel had been, how impossibly sharp her voice was, and how she had smiled, almost reluctantly, after solving the problem. Mia swallowed. The phone was hers? That didn't make sense. What would Rachel Winters be doing here, in this random cafe tucked beside the university library? Before her anxiety could talk her out of it, Mia went to the contacts. She didn't dare open the messages. But one entry caught her eye, Samantha, assistant. Mia tapped the number and held her breath. Yes. The voice on the other end was crisp, impatient. Mia's words stumbled out in a nervous tangle. Hi. I think I found a phone, and I think it belongs to Rachel Winters. Silence. Then a sharp inhale. Where are you? Mia told her. Within 30 minutes, she had an address, a time, and a promise that someone would meet her in the Winters Labs building. She almost didn't go. Mia wasn't used to entering skyscrapers with polished floors and security desks. She wasn't used to anything outside of code, books, and her own head. But something inside her, the same thing that made her hold doors open for strangers and reshelve books in alphabetical order even when she didn't have to, told her she needed to return this. It was the right thing to do. She arrived at 4:02 p.m. Her shoes squeaked against the marble as she approached the receptionist. She gave her name. She was led into an elevator. 17th floor. Mia tried not to stare at the modern art on the walls or the subtle gold trim on the hallway floor. She tried not to feel like an imposter. When the office door opened, her breath caught. Rachel Winters stood with her back to her, framed by a floor-to-ceiling window, the city a blur of light and shadow behind her. She turned slowly, and for a moment, Mia forgot what breathing felt like. Rachel was taller than she looked in videos. Sharper. But her eyes, blue, assessing, with something soft hidden beneath, locked onto Mia's face with sudden intensity. You found my phone, Rachel said, her voice lower than Mia expected. Mia nodded, holding it out with both hands. I just thought someone might be looking for it. Rachel didn't take the phone right away. She stared. Not rudely, not coldly, but as if trying to remember a dream. Have we met before? Mia's heart jumped. No, she said too quickly. I don't think so. Rachel took the phone, their fingers brushing. Mia's hand burned at the contact. Thank you, Rachel said. Simple. Direct. But there was something in the way she said it, as if those two words meant more than gratitude. Mia couldn't handle it. She mumbled a barely audible, "You're welcome," and turned. She didn't look back. She didn't see Rachel step forward as if to stop her. She didn't see her fingers hover just a second too long over the phone. But she felt the weight of the moment for hours afterward, like a second skin she couldn't remove. She had no idea that Rachel was still staring at the door long after she'd gone. No idea that Rachel hadn't seen that cardigan in 3 years. No idea that she'd been found. Mia couldn't sleep. Not because of midterms or unfinished projects or even the fact that she'd skipped dinner. It was the woman's voice, measured, calm, low-pitched, that echoed in her mind like a persistent melody. "Have we met before?" The question had knocked something loose inside her. No one ever asked if they knew her. People forgot Mia's face seconds after meeting her. Professors looked past her. Classmates barely remembered her name. But Rachel Winters had looked at her as if she mattered. As if there was something to remember. And now Mia was spiraling. Her mind replayed every second of that strange encounter. Rachel's gaze, the silence that stretched just a bit too long, the faint crease between her eyebrows as if she were solving an equation only she could see. Mia buried her face in her pillow and groaned. She'd embarrassed herself. Again. But at least it was over. She would never see her again. She could go back to her quiet, safe life.
Except she didn't want to.
Not entirely. There was a part of her, a dangerous, unfamiliar part, that wanted to see those eyes again. The next morning, she dragged herself through her Friday classes like a ghost. She tried to focus on code, but the IDE blurred before her. She tried to drink coffee, but it tasted wrong. By the time she got to the library for her shift, she felt like she was unraveling. At 4:17 p.m., her phone buzzed. An unknown number. Her stomach twisted. She stared at it for a long time before answering. "Hello. Is this Mia?" The voice was female. Professional. "This is Samantha, Ms. Winters' assistant." Mia froze. She gave me your number. I hope that's okay." Yes. She asked me to reach out with an opportunity. Ms. Winters is offering you a paid internship. Flexible hours. Technology division. Starting immediately if you're available." Mia blinked. What? You'd be assisting Ms. Winters directly. She was impressed with how you handled returning the phone. Said you were organized, discreet, resourceful. Mia's mouth went dry. She was a senior in computer science. She'd applied to internships before, tech startups, academic labs, government research programs, but none of them had called back yet. None of them had ever offered her something like this. Something personal. "May I send the offer letter to your email?" Samantha asked. "Ms. Winters would like to meet with you Monday, if possible." Mia agreed before her brain caught up with her mouth. After the call ended, she sat in silence. Then she stared at her reflection in the dark window across the library.
Who even was she right now?
Monday came too quickly. Mia stood in front of the Winters Labs building again, heart racing. She wore her cleanest jeans, a soft blue blouse, and the same cardigan she always wore. Her glasses were the same, too. She'd thought about switching to contacts but lost her nerve. She didn't want to pretend. She wasn't someone else. She was Mia. And Mia didn't belong in buildings like this. But the receptionist smiled at her like she was expected. She was given a badge. Taken to the elevator. 17th floor again. When the doors opened, Rachel was waiting. Not an assistant. Not security. Rachel. She wore a navy blue blazer, a dark green blouse, and no makeup except for a sweep of color on her lips. Her eyes, ice and fire, sharp and soft, lit up when she saw Mia. "Hi," she said simply. Mia stared, then blinked. "Hi. Come in." Rachel turned, leading her down a hallway of glass-walled offices, her heels soft against the carpet. "We won't take long. I just wanted to personally offer you the position. And thank you again." Mia followed like she was in a dream. Rachel's office was minimalist, modern, and too large for one person. A single umbrella hung on a coat rack in the corner. Mia didn't notice it yet. Rachel motioned for her to sit across from her. Mia obeyed, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. "I created this internship because I think you'd be a good fit," Rachel said, folding her hands. You're clearly intelligent. You handled a delicate situation with discretion, and I value loyalty and intuition. But, Mia whispered, I'm not qualified to be your assistant. You're overqualified, actually, Rachel said, a smile tugging at her mouth. I've read your academic work. Your project on multi-threaded encryption was better than some of the papers my engineers submit. Mia blinked. Her cheeks flushed. You read my paper? Of course. Rachel's voice softened. I make it a point to know the people I hire. Mia stared at her lap. Why me? Rachel was quiet for a moment. Then she said, because I want to work with people who see the world differently, who don't push themselves into the spotlight but still manage to leave an impact. Mia glanced up. Rachel's gaze met hers. It held her there, pinned but not trapped.
Scene.
I think you have more to offer than you realize, Rachel added, and I'd like to give you a space to explore that. The air between them thickened. Not with tension exactly, but with something unspoken. Something charged. I'd like to accept, Mia said. Rachel smiled. Full this time. Good. She stood and extended her hand. Mia rose and shook it. Rachel's hand was warm, firm, and lingered just a moment too long. Welcome aboard, she murmured. And as Mia walked out of the office, she dared to glance back. Rachel was still watching her. A flicker of something passed between them. Not quite recognition. Not quite curiosity. But something. And Mia felt it. Deep in her chest. Something had shifted. Something had begun. The first week of the internship didn't feel real. Mia kept waiting for someone to tap her shoulder and tell her there'd been a mistake, that she wasn't meant to be there, that the glass badge with her name on it had been printed for someone else. But no one did. She arrived each morning before 8, took the elevator to the 17th floor, and sat at the small desk just outside Rachel's office. Samantha had explained her tasks clearly. Organize Rachel's meetings, handle internal memos, proof reports, coordinate with engineering leads, and, when possible, make Rachel's life easier. Mia had nodded politely, pretending she wasn't drowning in nervous energy. What she hadn't expected was how natural it felt once she started. Rachel's calendar had been a disaster, color-coded chaos with overlapping meetings and no breathing room. By Tuesday, Mia had already streamlined it, shifted calls to more productive blocks, and added 15-minute buffers that no one noticed, but everyone appreciated. By Thursday, engineers from the 9th floor were sending her thank you messages for rerouting a bottlenecked testing cycle. But the strangest part wasn't the work. It was Rachel. She wasn't what Mia expected. On the outside, yes, poised, efficient, sharp as glass, but there were moments. Small cracks in the armor. On Mia's second day, she'd walked into the office to find Rachel sitting cross-legged on the couch in the corner, hair undone, a half-empty coffee mug in hand, staring at the window like she was somewhere else entirely. She turned her head slowly when Mia entered, blinking as if waking up from a dream. Morning, she'd murmured. No mask, no polish, just a woman who hadn't slept. Mia had nodded shyly, but something in her chest had ached. She started bringing an extra thermos of coffee each morning, black, 1 teaspoon of raw sugar, no cream, leaving it on Rachel's desk with a sticky note, in case today's a hard one. Rachel never said thank you, but she always drank it. By Friday, there was a shift. Not a dramatic one. Just enough that Mia noticed. Rachel's glances lingered longer. Her voice softened when she asked about Mia's day. Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow even more. And let me know in the comments, on a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story so far? Your feedback makes all the difference. Once, when Mia dropped a folder and bent to pick it up, Rachel crouched down too, helping her gather the scattered papers. Their hands touched. Neither of them moved. The contact was brief, meaningless to anyone else, but Mia's heart kicked against her ribs. She risked a glance. Rachel's eyes were already on hers. They didn't speak. They just looked. That night, Mia stayed up late reading Rachel's old interviews. She hadn't given one in nearly a year, but the ones from her early days as CEO were everywhere. She was always calm, controlled, strategic. But the Rachel Mia saw at work, beneath the polish, was different. She rubbed her temples when she was tired. She kept a candy stash in her bottom drawer. She had 3 pens and always used the blue one first. And she smiled, really smiled, only when Mia laughed at something in a meeting. The next Monday, Mia brought in a tiny potted succulent for her desk. Rachel stopped when she saw it. "New friend?" she asked. Mia smiled softly. "Less needy than people." Rachel chuckled. "I like it." The following day, a matching succulent appeared on Rachel's windowsill. No explanation. No note. But Mia knew. That Friday, during a late meeting with a lead engineer who wouldn't stop mansplaining, Mia shifted in her seat, fidgeting with a pen in her hand. Rachel noticed. She cut the meeting short. When the man left, she turned to Mia and asked, "Are you okay?" Mia nodded too quickly. Rachel tilted her head. "You don't have to pretend with me." Mia swallowed. Her fingers trembled slightly. "Sometimes, I just get overwhelmed. When people don't listen. Or when I feel small." Rachel's expression softened. "You're not small, Mia." Her voice was steady, grounded. "You do more in a week than most people do in a month. And you make this place quieter. Better." Mia's breath caught. Rachel stepped closer, but not too close. "If anyone makes you feel invisible again, let me know." A pause. "You're not invisible to me." The words landed like thunder in Mia's chest. She stared at Rachel, eyes wide, heart exposed. "Okay," she whispered. The silence between them was thick, vibrating with something neither of them named. That night, as she packed her things to leave, Mia noticed a note on her monitor. It was Rachel's handwriting. "Don't forget your umbrella. Forecast says rain." Mia stared at it. She hadn't brought an umbrella. She never did. But she looked toward the coat rack. And there it was. A black umbrella, resting quietly, waiting for her. Her fingers closed around it like muscle memory. Something flickered in her mind. A flash of rain. A stranger's eyes. But it passed. She didn't know yet. But Rachel did. Mia couldn't stop thinking about the umbrella. The black umbrella, neatly placed on the coat rack, as if it had always been there. She stared at it that night, fingers brushing over the handle, almost expecting it to answer her unasked questions. Was this really a coincidence? She hadn't mentioned the weather. She never did. But Rachel knew. Rachel always knew. And Mia wondered, just for a fleeting second, if Rachel had been the one to leave it there. If she had been watching her that entire week, subtly reaching out in the only way she knew how. But Mia pushed the thought away. She had no right to entertain it. It was just a small gesture, nothing more. Right? The next morning, Mia showed up at the office as usual. Rachel had already arrived, her heels clicking against the polished floors as she moved through the open-plan space. Mia felt a flutter in her chest when she saw Rachel. She always did. And every time their eyes met, it was like a spark ignited. Small, but enough to keep her grounded throughout the day. That morning, Rachel asked Mia to sit in on a meeting with the senior engineers. Mia didn't even blink. She knew her place, assistant, intern, observer. But Rachel was different today. More present, more aware of Mia. Throughout the meeting, Rachel caught Mia's eye a few times, smiling faintly when Mia caught her watching. Mia didn't know how to handle the warmth in those glances. She tried to stay professional, but it was hard. Everything felt charged. At lunch, when they went to the break room to grab something to eat, Rachel surprised her. "Mia," she said softly, her voice a little lower than usual, "would you like to join me for dinner tonight?" Mia blinked. "Dinner?" Her voice cracked, and she quickly cleared her throat. "With you?" Rachel's smile deepened, but there was something almost nervous about it. "Yes, with me. I've been meaning to ask you for a while, but I never had the right moment." Mia's stomach flipped. She nodded, unsure of what to say. "Sure. I'd like that." Rachel seemed relieved, but she didn't say much more. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur for Mia. She barely managed to concentrate. All she could think about was the fact that Rachel Winters had invited her to dinner. Dinner. She didn't know what to expect. It wasn't like this was the first time Rachel had been kind to her. But something about the invitation felt different. It felt like a moment where they were no longer just CEO and assistant, but two people trying to navigate something new and unpredictable. When the evening came, Mia found herself standing outside a trendy restaurant, her fingers trembling as she adjusted the collar of her jacket. She hadn't expected Rachel to choose a place so nice. She had expected something low-key. Instead, the place was chic, with a long line of fancy cars parked outside. Mia swallowed hard. Rachel appeared a moment later, wearing a sleek black dress that hugged her figure and made her look effortlessly stunning. She looked out of place in the city's glittering lights, but that was Rachel Winters. She always looked like she belonged to another world, one Mia could never quite enter. Except now, Mia was walking beside her. Rachel smiled when she saw Mia. "You look beautiful," she said softly, and Mia's heart skipped a beat. "I'm glad you came." "I thank you," Mia murmured, her voice small and unsure. She wasn't used to compliments, especially not from someone like Rachel. As they entered the restaurant, Rachel guided her to a secluded corner table. The soft hum of quiet conversation surrounded them, but the space between them felt electrified. Rachel didn't speak much at first. She let Mia settle in, adjusting the napkin at her lap, watching her with those eyes that seemed to study every small detail. "Tell me about yourself, Mia," Rachel said, breaking the silence. "What makes you you?" Mia laughed nervously, unsure of how to answer. I'm just a student. I've been in school for forever. I like books and computers and being left alone." Rachel tilted her head, her lips curving into a soft smile. "I don't believe that."
I think you're more than that. You're quiet, yes.
"But there's a certain strength in that quiet. I can see it." Mia wasn't sure how to respond. She could feel her pulse quicken, the heat in her cheeks a sign of how out of place she felt. She wasn't good at talking about herself, especially not to someone like Rachel. But Rachel made her feel seen. Made her feel like maybe, for once, she wasn't just a shadow. Their dinner passed slowly, the conversation meandering from topics of school to Rachel's life as a CEO. There was something about the way Rachel spoke, openly, honestly, with a slight vulnerability in her voice, that made Mia want to listen, to understand her. The night was almost over when Rachel's hand brushed against Mia's, just a fleeting touch, but enough to send sparks through her skin. "I'm glad you're here, Mia," Rachel said quietly, her voice thick with emotion. "I've been wanting to get to know you for a long time." Mia looked down at their hands, still resting close together. She didn't know how to respond. Everything felt too big, too intense. But when she looked up into Rachel's eyes, she saw something there, a depth, a softness that made her heart ache. "Me too," Mia whispered. The words hung in the air between them, unspoken and yet louder than anything they'd said all night. Neither of them moved. Neither of them knew how to move. When the check arrived, Rachel paid, her fingers lingering a moment too long as she handed the waitress a generous tip. Mia didn't say anything, but she noticed. And when they stood to leave, Rachel's fingers brushed hers again, longer this time. "I'll walk you home," Rachel said. Mia didn't protest. She couldn't. It started raining halfway through the walk, soft and steady like the night was exhaling. Mia didn't mind. She liked the sound of it, the hush of water on pavement, the rhythmic tapping against Rachel's umbrella. They shared it without speaking, shoulders brushing lightly with every step. Mia couldn't tell if Rachel was doing it on purpose or if they were just too close, but either way, she didn't move away. Her breath fogged slightly in the cool air, and each time she glanced up at Rachel, the light from the street lamps caught in her hair, making her look almost unreal. They reached Mia's apartment building in silence. Rachel stopped at the front steps, glancing up at the old brick structure like it was a puzzle she didn't quite know how to solve. Mia shifted awkwardly, suddenly hyper-aware of the fact that she was still wearing her work shoes and that her cardigan had a loose thread near the shoulder. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "For dinner. And the walk." Rachel didn't reply immediately. She just looked at her, really looked at her, and Mia felt something tighten in her chest. "You're not what I expected," Rachel said softly. but I think I prefer it that way. Mia's heart stuttered. She wanted to ask what that meant, but the words caught in her throat. Rachel was close now, closer than she needed to be. The umbrella dipped slightly, and a raindrop landed on Mia's cheek. She didn't flinch. Rachel reached up, slowly, and brushed the drop away with her thumb. Her fingers lingered against Mia's skin, feather-light. Mia's breath caught. She didn't pull back. "You always look down when you get nervous," Rachel said, her voice gentle. "But I like when you look at me." Mia swallowed hard and forced herself to meet Rachel's eyes. What she saw there wasn't cold or calculating. It wasn't the look of a CEO or a woman who owned half the city. It was warm,
Honest.
and maybe a little afraid. "I don't really know how to do this," Mia admitted. "Neither do I," Rachel replied, and for once, she didn't sound composed. She sounded real.
Human.
Their eyes stayed locked, and for one electric second, Mia thought Rachel was going to kiss her. She could feel the gravity of it pulling between them, the air thick with everything unsaid. But Rachel didn't. Instead, she stepped back and handed Mia the umbrella.
"Keep it," she said.
"Just in case." Mia nodded, unable to speak. Rachel hesitated like she wanted to say more, but instead she gave her a small smile, soft, almost sad, and turned to go. Mia stood there long after she'd disappeared down the street, heart hammering, umbrella clutched tightly in her hand. That night, she barely slept. Her thoughts kept circling, replaying every second of that walk, that moment, that touch. The next morning, she arrived at the office early, hoping to ground herself in routine. But when she stepped onto the 17th floor, Rachel was already there, sitting at her desk with a cup of coffee, staring out the window. Mia froze when she saw her. Rachel turned slowly, her eyes tired but kind.
"Morning," she said.
"Morning," Mia echoed, her voice softer than usual. Rachel didn't say anything else. She just nodded toward Mia's desk. On it sat a new travel mug, matte black with a post-it on the lid that simply said, "Thought you might need something stronger than cafeteria coffee today." Mia stared at it, then looked back at Rachel, who was already turning toward her screen, pretending to work. Mia sat down without a word, but her chest felt tight, in the best possible way. The day passed slowly, filled with meetings and emails and tasks that kept her moving, but her thoughts kept drifting back to the moment outside her building. To the way Rachel had touched her cheek. To the look in her eyes. That afternoon, Mia was typing up notes when she noticed a file open on Rachel's desk. It was a project proposal, early-stage design for a mentorship initiative for young women in tech. The file was titled, "Quiet Brilliance." Mia stared at it. Then she saw the first sentence, "Inspired by someone who thinks she goes unnoticed, but changes everything she touches." Her breath caught. She looked up, but Rachel wasn't at her desk anymore. She was across the office, deep in conversation with an executive. She looked powerful, in control, untouchable. And yet, Mia knew that wasn't the whole story. That night, Mia lingered after hours. She said she had emails to finish, but really, she just didn't want to leave. Rachel stayed late too, and when the office finally emptied, the silence between them felt heavier than usual. Rachel stood near the window, watching the city. Mia approached slowly, unsure of what she was doing, until she was already there. "You didn't have to give me the umbrella," she said quietly. Rachel looked at her, surprised. "I wanted to. You didn't have to write that post-it either." "I wanted to do that, too." A long pause stretched between them. Mia looked down, then forced herself to look up.
"Why?"
Rachel's expression softened. "Because I care. More than I probably should." Mia's heart stuttered again. "I don't know what to do with that," she whispered. "You don't have to do anything," Rachel replied. "Just stay." The way she said it made Mia feel like she could breathe again. And so she stayed. They stood there, side by side, looking out at the city lights that blurred like stars. No titles. No walls. Just two women, slowly falling into something neither of them had expected, but both of them were already beginning to need. Mia didn't know what staying meant. Not exactly, but when Rachel said it, something in her body responded before her mind could catch up.
"Stay."
as if Rachel was offering her something she hadn't even realized she'd been craving. Not attention, not recognition, presence, a space to exist without apology.
They didn't speak after that.
They simply stood there, side by side, the glass of the window cool beneath their fingertips as the city blurred into abstraction beyond. Eventually, Rachel moved, quietly gathering her things, and Mia did the same. When they stepped into the elevator together, the silence was soft, not uncomfortable. Their shoulders brushed, and neither pulled away. The descent was slow, as if the building itself knew they weren't ready to go back to the real world. When they reached the lobby, Rachel turned to Mia. "Do you want a ride?" The question was simple, casual, but the look in Rachel's eyes was anything but. Mia hesitated only a second before nodding. The car was warm, the leather seats smooth beneath her hands. Rachel didn't speak, and neither did Mia, but the air between them pulsed. When they reached Mia's apartment, Rachel walked her to the door. Mia fumbled with her keys, her hands trembling slightly. She didn't know what she was doing. She didn't know what she wanted, until Rachel reached out and gently touched her wrist. Mia froze. Rachel's thumb traced the inside of her arm, just once.
Slow.
Deliberate. "You don't have to invite me in," Rachel said, her voice husky. "I won't cross a line you're not ready for." Mia's breath caught. She turned slowly, meeting Rachel's eyes. "But if I wanted to?" she asked, barely more than a whisper. Rachel's mouth parted slightly.
"Then I'd come in," she said.
"And I'd take things slowly.
Carefully.
However you needed." Mia's heart pounded so loudly it drowned out everything else. The key slipped into the lock. The door opened. She stepped inside and turned back. "Then come in." The door clicked shut behind them. The apartment was small, quiet, dimly lit by the glow of a single floor lamp. Mia kicked off her shoes and stood awkwardly in the center of the living room, suddenly hyper-aware of every object out of place. Rachel looked around, her expression unreadable, and then she smiled. "It feels like you," she said. Mia blinked. "What do you mean?" Rachel stepped closer, taking in the walls lined with books, the laptop on the coffee table, the small ceramic mug holding pens. "It's soft, thoughtful, private, like someone who listens more than she speaks." Mia's throat tightened. No one had ever described her like that. Rachel turned back to her, something shifting in her eyes. "May I?" she asked, stepping close enough that Mia could feel the heat of her. Mia nodded. Rachel reached up and gently took Mia's glasses off, setting them carefully on the table. Her hands moved to Mia's cardigan, fingers brushing over the worn fabric. Then slowly, so slowly, she slid her hands down Mia's arms until they were holding each other, palms warm and trembling. "Tell me to stop," Rachel whispered. Mia didn't. Instead, she leaned forward just enough to close the distance. The kiss was soft, hesitant, the kind of kiss that asked a question instead of assuming an answer. Rachel cupped Mia's face, her touch reverent, and Mia melted into it, all nerves and wonder. Her hands found Rachel's waist, fingers clutching at the silk of her blouse. The kiss deepened, but not hungrily. It was intimate, exploratory, as if they were both discovering something they'd been searching for without knowing it. When they pulled apart, Mia was breathless. Rachel rested her forehead against hers, their bodies still tangled. "I've been looking for you for a long time," she said softly. Mia's breath hitched. She didn't understand what Rachel meant. Not fully. Not yet. But something inside her broke open. "I don't know what this is," she admitted. "But I don't want it to end." Rachel smiled, and it was the first time Mia saw her drop every wall. "Then it won't," she said. "Not unless you want it to." They sat on the couch afterward, close but not touching, their hands brushing from time to time. Mia told her about her childhood, her fear of being seen, how the library had always felt like a sanctuary. Rachel listened, really listened, and then shared pieces of her own story. How leadership felt like armor, how success sometimes tasted like loneliness, how she never forgot the kindness of a stranger who once handed her a black umbrella in the middle of a storm. Mia froze. Her breath caught in her throat. "What did you say?" Rachel looked at her. The umbrella, she said quietly. 3 years ago, I was stranded outside a hotel after a board meeting. It was raining, and a girl I'd never met handed me her umbrella and walked away before I could ask her name. I never forgot her. Mia stared at her, heart pounding. She stood slowly, walked to her front closet, and pulled out the umbrella Rachel had given her days ago. She turned it over in her hands. There, stitched faintly into the fabric near the handle, was a tag. Her breath hitched. Find her, no matter how long it takes. She looked up. Rachel was watching her. Silent. Vulnerable. Mia didn't say anything. She walked back, sat beside her, and took her hand. And then she kissed her again. Not questioning this time. Not tentative. This kiss was a beginning. A promise. Rachel didn't stay the night. Not because she didn't want to, but because she knew she needed to give Mia space to breathe. After that second kiss, slow, certain, irrevocable, they had remained tangled on the couch, holding each other in silence, neither of them ready to break the spell. Mia had fallen asleep briefly with her head resting on Rachel's shoulder, her body tucked close like she belonged there, like maybe she had always belonged there. When she stirred again, embarrassed, Rachel only brushed her hair back gently and whispered, I should go. Mia nodded, but her fingers clung to Rachel's hand just a second too long before letting go. Rachel left her with one last kiss, soft and lingering against her temple, before slipping into the night with a promise in her eyes. The next morning, Mia woke up in a daze. Everything felt unreal. The umbrella still sat on the table like a symbol of something sacred, and her lips still tingled from the weight of Rachel's. She was terrified and exhilarated, and so full of feelings she didn't know where to put it. At work, nothing was the same, and yet everything was. Rachel greeted her with a nod, a glance that lasted longer than it should have, and a cup of coffee already waiting on her desk. No words, no shift in tone. But the way Rachel looked at her now made Mia's skin hum. The way she stood slightly closer during meetings. The way her fingers grazed Mia's when handing her a file. The way she waited, at the end of the day, until the office was nearly empty, before murmuring, Stay a little longer? Mia always said yes. The secrecy between them wasn't planned, but it felt right. This was theirs, quiet, slow, unfolding like the first breath after a long silence. One night, near the end of the week, Rachel invited her up to the penthouse floor. Mia had never been there, an executive-only space with panoramic windows and velvet chairs no one ever sat in. Rachel led her to a corner where the city lights looked like stars, and the skyline stretched endlessly beyond the glass. Sometimes I come here when I can't sleep, Rachel said. It's too quiet at home, too empty. Mia stood beside her, hands clasped in front of her, unsure what to say. Do you sleep better now? She asked quietly. Rachel looked at her. When I think of you, yes. The words hit something deep in Mia. She turned, her breath caught in her throat, and saw Rachel's expression. Open, stripped of any defense. Mia reached for her, without thinking. Rachel pulled her into a kiss that was different than the others, not tentative, not cautious. This kiss was slow but hungry, aching and reverent. Mia pressed closer, letting herself feel it fully, her hands sliding beneath Rachel's blazer, fingers curling into the softness of her blouse. Rachel's arms wrapped tightly around her, one hand cradling the back of Mia's head, the other pressed firmly against the small of her back, as if anchoring her to the moment. They didn't speak as Rachel gently backed her into the couch and guided her down. The mood shifted, still tender, but with an urgency beneath it that neither of them could ignore anymore. Rachel kissed her slowly, deeply, like she was memorizing the shape of her mouth, the taste of her skin. Mia's fingers trembled as they moved over Rachel's waist, unsure, afraid to go further. But Rachel broke the kiss and whispered, You're safe. Whatever you want. Nothing more. Mia looked up at her and saw it. Patience, restraint, a kind of desperate reverence. She nodded. Her voice was a breath. Stay. Rachel did. They moved slowly, breath sinking, bodies learning each other with a gentleness that felt holy. Every touch was permission. Every sigh a promise. They didn't rush. There was no need. This wasn't about possession. It was about presence, about being fully, entirely seen. Later, wrapped in one of Rachel's coats and sipping tea in the soft light of the rooftop lounge, Mia leaned her head against Rachel's shoulder. "I feel like I'm dreaming," she murmured. Rachel kissed the top of her head. "You're not." "But why me?" Mia asked softly, her voice cracking. "Out of everyone, all the people you could have, why me?" Rachel looked down at her, her fingers brushing Mia's knee in slow circles. "Because you were the first person who saw me and didn't want anything. You didn't even know who I was. You just handed me a piece of your kindness and disappeared."
Her voice faltered.
"You gave me something when I had nothing left in me. And I've been searching for that feeling ever since. You gave me shelter, Mia. And now I want to give it back to you." Mia closed her eyes. Her throat burned. No one had ever said anything like that to her. No one had ever made her feel like she was the rare thing, the one worth finding. She lifted her head slowly, looking at Rachel, and whispered, "Then don't stop." Rachel didn't. She kissed her again, slow, quiet, with the city watching and the stars hidden behind glass. And in that moment, Mia stopped questioning. Because being with Rachel didn't feel like a fairy tale. It didn't feel like luck. It felt like gravity. Like she had always been pulled toward her, and only now had she finally stopped resisting. It should have felt perfect. Waking up in Rachel's arms, her breath warm against Mia's neck, her fingers tangled loosely in Mia's hair like they had always belonged there. And for a while it did. The quiet morning light streamed through the penthouse windows, bathing the room in a soft gold glow, and Mia could almost forget that outside this moment, the world existed. But as Rachel got up to shower, disappearing behind a clouded glass wall, Mia sat on the edge of the bed and felt something heavy settle in her chest. It wasn't regret. It wasn't doubt. It was something colder. Something sharper. Reality. The part of her that had always whispered she wasn't meant for this kind of intimacy, this kind of attention, suddenly screamed loud in her ears. She looked around the room, at the clean lines and designer furniture, the shelves lined with awards and framed articles, and felt the familiar ache of being out of place. Rachel was a woman the world paid attention to. Mia had spent her entire life avoiding being seen. They were fire and shadow. And even though Rachel made her feel safe, wanted, even cherished, somewhere deep down, Mia couldn't shake the fear that she was temporary. That eventually Rachel would realize what everyone else always had. That Mia was forgettable, replaceable. She left quietly after Rachel's shower, murmuring something about an early class. Rachel had offered her a ride, but Mia declined, needing the cold morning air to clear her head. She walked the long way back to her apartment, clutching the coat Rachel had wrapped around her the night before. It still smelled like her. That day at work, things felt different. Rachel was the same, composed, brilliant, generous with her glances, but Mia pulled back. Just slightly. Enough for Rachel to notice. Enough for Rachel's brow to furrow when Mia spoke in shorter sentences, avoided prolonged eye contact, and excused herself from their usual late meetings. Rachel didn't push, but she watched. And Mia felt the weight of that gaze like it was trying to reach inside her, trying to find the version of Mia who had whispered "don't stop" just nights ago. By midweek, the silence between them had thickened. Not hostile, just uncertain, like a string pulled too tight, waiting to snap. Then Thursday came. The office was mostly empty, most of the staff working remotely due to a citywide outage. But Mia showed up anyway, drawn to the quiet, the order of her routine. Rachel was already there, seated by the window, dressed down in a soft black sweater and jeans, barefoot on the rug like she had nowhere to be but there. When Mia walked in, Rachel looked up, and for a long moment, neither of them said anything. "I missed you," Rachel said simply. Mia blinked. "I've been here," she replied, her voice small. Rachel shook her head slowly.
"No.
You haven't." Mia's chest ached. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "Be this person for you. I'm not like you, Rachel. I'm not powerful or polished or good at being seen." Rachel stood, closing the distance between them. "I never wanted you to be like me," she said gently. I wanted you to be you. The woman who reorganized my chaos without being asked, who leaves notes on bad days, who sees through the noise. But what if that's not enough? Mia whispered, her voice cracking. What if I'm not enough for you? Rachel's face softened with something deeper than tenderness, something almost like pain. She reached out, cupped Mia's face with both hands, her thumbs brushing the corners of her eyes. Then I'm the one who isn't enough, she said, because I haven't made you feel how much you matter to me. Mia's breath hitched. You do. I'm scared. Of losing this. Of not knowing what this is. This is real, Rachel said, her voice low and firm. It's not a fantasy, Mia. It's messy and terrifying and probably completely irrational, but it's real. You don't even know everything about me, Mia murmured. You don't know what I'm like when I shut down or get stuck in my head or can't function for days. Rachel stepped even closer. Then show me. Let me be there for all of it. Not just the parts that are easy. Mia's eyes filled with tears. She hated how raw she felt. How exposed. But Rachel didn't flinch. She just held her, strong and steady, as if nothing Mia could show her would ever be too much. You found me when I didn't know I was lost, Rachel said softly. You didn't need to be loud to save me. You just had to be kind. And I will never forget that. Mia leaned into her, pressing her face into Rachel's shoulder, breathing in her scent like it could hold her together. Don't let me push you away, she whispered. Even if I try. Rachel's arms wrapped tighter around her. I won't, she promised. I see you. All of you. And I'm not going anywhere. For the first time in days, Mia believed her. For a few weeks, things found a rhythm. Mia and Rachel moved around each other with a kind of intimacy that didn't need explaining. Quiet looks exchanged across the office, the warmth of a hand on a lower back in passing, the gentle brushing of fingers beneath desks when no one was looking. At night, they took turns staying over. Mia's apartment felt too small for someone like Rachel, but she never complained. She sat cross-legged on Mia's bed, hair damp from the shower, wearing one of Mia's oversized t-shirts like she belonged there. And in Rachel's penthouse, Mia felt oddly safe despite the intimidating height and sleek decor, because Rachel filled the space with warmth when she looked at her, touched her, held her without expecting her to perform. There were breakfasts shared in silence, books read side by side without speaking, kisses exchanged between emails and meetings. It was the kind of love that grew in the in-between. Not loud, not obvious, but steady. Then the tension arrived, subtle, like a change in pressure before a storm. It started with a board meeting. Rachel had invited Mia to sit in, not as her assistant, but as an observer. You're smarter than half the people in that room, she'd said. You deserve to see what your future could look like. Mia had been flattered, grateful, until the meeting began. The room was filled with older men in expensive suits, each one barely glancing at her except to make a point of her being there. One even asked Rachel afterward if she was mentoring interns now, or something else entirely. Rachel's jaw had tightened, but she hadn't responded. And that silence echoed in Mia's chest long after they left the room. She knew Rachel had to pick her battles. That being the youngest woman in that space was already a fight. But Mia couldn't help feeling like a liability. Like being next to Rachel meant putting her in a position to be judged, diminished, questioned. That night, Mia pulled away. Not obviously. Just enough. She canceled plans with a vague excuse, didn't respond to a good night message until morning. She hated herself for it, but the feeling wouldn't go away. The idea that she was the weak link in Rachel's perfect, unbreakable image. When Rachel showed up unannounced at the library the next day, wearing jeans and a soft black coat, holding a coffee Mia hadn't asked for, she looked more like the woman Mia kissed in the dark than the CEO people whispered about. She didn't say anything. She just handed Mia the drink and sat beside her at the empty study table. Tell me, Rachel said, her voice calm but unshakable. Mia stared down at the cup. It's nothing. You're lying. It's nothing you can fix, Mia whispered. I don't want to be the reason people talk. The reason you're doubted. Rachel's fingers grazed hers under the table. You're not the reason. They are. But they only talk when I'm around. Then let them talk, Rachel said. I spent half my life trying to be perfect in rooms full of people who didn't want me there. I won. And I'm not going to start hiding now just because you're scared. Mia flinched, not because of the words, but because they were true. Rachel softened. I'm sorry. That came out harsh. But I need you to hear me when I say that I don't care what they think. I care what you think. I care that you believe in us. Mia looked at her, and something inside her broke open again. It's hard, she said, to believe that I belong next to you, that I'm not just temporary. Then let me prove to you that you're not. Rachel's voice was a whisper now. Let me fight for this. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to stay. Mia turned her hand over beneath the table, lacing their fingers together. The world outside the library kept moving, but in that moment it didn't matter. Rachel was there, choosing her. Again. Always. And for now, that was enough. Mia woke up that morning to the sound of rain tapping softly against her window, but instead of feeling anxious, she felt a quiet anticipation, a flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with classwork or obligations. Rachel was already up, leaning against the doorway of Mia's bedroom, a mug of coffee in her hands, watching her with a small, private smile that made Mia's stomach tighten and her heart leap in her chest. Morning, Rachel whispered, her voice low and intimate, the kind that made her sound closer than the space between them allowed. Mia sat up, rubbing the sleep from her eyes, trying to appear casual, though her fingers trembled slightly as she reached for the mug Rachel offered her. Did you sleep? Rachel asked, stepping closer, the heat from her body brushing against Mia's without touch, and Mia nodded, words caught somewhere between shyness and awe. Good, Rachel murmured, setting the mug down and moving to sit beside her on the edge of the bed. Their knees brushed, a fleeting contact that sent warmth spiraling through Mia. I thought we could go for a walk before work, Rachel continued, her hand sliding casually, deliberately, across the blanket until it rested lightly against Mia's wrist. Mia felt herself inhale sharply. She nodded again, unable to form words, her heart hammering, pulse quickening. Outside, the rain had eased into a gentle drizzle, and the city looked silver under the muted morning light. They walked without speaking, side by side, the silence comfortable, the kind that could hold 1,000 unsaid words and make them feel enough. When they reached a quiet park tucked between tall office buildings, Rachel stopped near a bench and turned to Mia, eyes catching the soft reflection of the wet pavement. I've been thinking, Rachel said, voice low, almost hesitant, about how quickly everything changed between us. How fast I felt like I needed you. How long I've been looking for someone who sees me, not the CEO, not the image, not the reputation, but me. Mia swallowed hard. Her chest tightened. I don't know what to say. Rachel smiled softly, a little crooked, a little nervous, the kind of smile she rarely allowed anyone to see. You don't have to say anything. Just listen. Just be here. Mia's hand found Rachel's, fingers threading together naturally, as if they had always belonged that way. Rachel's thumb brushed over the back of her hand, slow, deliberate, and Mia felt heat spread from her chest through her entire body. She wanted to speak, to confess, to pour everything she felt into words, but instead, she leaned closer, resting her head lightly against Rachel's shoulder, letting the quiet pulse of the city around them fade into nothing. Rachel's other arm came around her, holding her with a protective, grounding presence that made Mia feel like she could finally exhale, finally exist without fear. Minutes passed, maybe an hour, and neither noticed. When Rachel finally pulled back slightly, her forehead resting against Mia's, she whispered, "You're the best part of my days now. The part one want to keep, always." Mia's breath caught, tears pricking the corners of her eyes. "I don't deserve you," she murmured. Rachel laughed softly, the sound warm and reassuring. "Stop that. You deserve everything, Mia. Every bit of love, every bit of kindness, every bit of safety I can give. And I want to give it to you." The words were quiet, intimate, and more binding than any contract, any promise. Mia's heart swelled. She pressed her lips against Rachel's in a slow, deliberate kiss that spoke of trust, longing, and surrender. Rachel responded in kind, arms wrapping around her, holding her close as if letting go would shatter them both. The world could wait. The office, the responsibilities, the expectations, all of it could wait. Here, now, they had each other. And it was enough. For the first time in her life, Mia felt fully, completely seen, not invisible, not overlooked, not timid. She was wanted. She was cherished. She was home. And Rachel, smiling into the kiss, whispered against her lips, "We're in this together, Mia. All of it. Every day." And Mia, with a heart finally fearless, answered with another kiss, letting the rain and the city fade into nothing but them, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it side by side. The following week brought a subtle tension Mia hadn't anticipated, a reminder that their lives existed beyond the bubble they had built together. It started with whispers in the office, offhand comments about Rachel spending so much time with her assistant, questions veiled as jokes about favoritism, subtle glances from people who didn't know how to interpret the closeness between the CEO and the quiet intern. Mia felt each one like a weight pressing on her chest, each word a tiny blade cutting into her confidence. She tried to ignore it, focusing on the tasks Rachel had given her, but the unease lingered, creeping into the quiet moments she shared with Rachel, making her hesitate before smiling, before touching, before speaking. Rachel noticed immediately, of course. One afternoon, after a long meeting that had left Mia nearly shaking, Rachel caught her outside her office, gently tilting her chin up to meet her gaze. "You've been quiet all day," Rachel said softly, her hand brushing against Mia's hair in the familiar, grounding way that had become their language. Mia looked down, the familiar panic rising. I don't want to be the reason people think badly of you," she whispered, voice trembling. "You're not," Rachel said firmly, taking her hands in hers. "And if they do, it doesn't matter. What matters is us. What matters is you." Mia's eyes filled with tears, her heart pounding, the walls she had spent so long building threatening to collapse. "But I'm small. I don't belong in this world. I'm not like you." Rachel smiled, a mix of warmth and steel. "You belong wherever I am. You're not small, Mia. You make everything bigger, brighter, real. And I don't need you to be like me. I need you to be you." The sincerity in her voice left Mia breathless. She pressed her forehead to Rachel's, letting herself absorb the warmth and reassurance, her hands clutching Rachel's blazer as if it were the only thing anchoring her to reality. "I'm scared," she admitted softly. "Scared I'll mess this up. That I'll break what we have." Rachel's lips brushed the top of her head. "Then let me hold you. Let me protect you. We'll face the world together. No one else's opinions change what we have." And in that moment, Mia realized that the whispered judgments, the sideways glances, the invisible pressure of expectation, it all fell away when she was with Rachel. She leaned in, lips meeting Rachel's in a slow, firm kiss that carried every fear, every doubt, every heartbeat, and Rachel responded with equal intensity, wrapping her arms around Mia, holding her like she could shield her from everything. They stayed like that, pressed together, hearts beating in unison, until the sounds of the office and the city outside became distant and unimportant. And when they finally pulled back, Rachel rested her forehead against Mia's, breath mingling, and whispered, "No matter what happens out there, I see you. Only you. And nothing can take that away." Mia felt her chest finally lighten, the anxiety melting into trust, the fear replaced by the certainty that she belonged here, not as an outsider, not as someone temporary, but as the one Rachel had been searching for all along, and that she had chosen, every day, to stay by her side. The weekend arrived with an unexpected quiet that felt heavier than usual, a silence that allowed Mia's thoughts to grow louder, each one echoing her insecurities about their relationship. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the umbrella Rachel had given her days ago, the memory of the note stitched into the fabric making her chest ache with both longing and fear. What if she wasn't enough? What if her timidity, her constant need to hide, started to drive Rachel away? She wanted to call, to reach out, but the voice in her head warned her that she'd appear clingy, needy, unworthy. By the time Monday arrived, she had barely slept, and Rachel noticed immediately. The way Mia's shoulders were tense, her gaze hesitant, her usually soft voice clipped and careful. That afternoon, Rachel cornered her gently in the small kitchen area, handing her a mug of coffee and looking at her with those eyes that saw everything. "Talk to me," Rachel said softly. "Don't bottle it up. I can't help you if you hide behind walls." Mia shook her head, tears welling as she admitted, "I'm scared. Scared of losing this. Scared of being too small for you. Scared that I'll ruin something that feels so perfect." Rachel's expression softened into something tender, almost fragile, as she cupped Mia's face with both hands, thumbs brushing her cheeks. "Mia," she whispered, "you don't ruin anything. You don't have to be bigger, louder, different. Just being you is enough. You've never been too small for me. You've been everything I've been searching for." Mia let herself breathe, leaning into Rachel's hands, feeling the warmth and steadiness that had become her anchor. "But what if I falter?" she murmured. "What if I can't be what you need?" Rachel smiled, a faint quirk in her lips that made Mia's heart ache, and pressed her forehead against hers. "Then I'll be here," she said, voice unwavering. "I'll catch you every time. Every single time. You'll never be alone in this, Mia. I promise." The words, soft and sincere, broke through the storm of doubt in Mia's mind, and she felt herself collapse against Rachel in an embrace that held every fear, every anxiety, every trembling heartbeat. They didn't speak for a long while, only breathing together, hearts sinking in the quiet of the nearly empty office, the city beyond the windows muted. Eventually, Rachel lifted her head slightly, eyes glistening, and whispered, "I need you to trust me. Trust us. That's all I ask." Mia nodded against her chest, closing her eyes, letting herself believe for the first time that she truly could. When she finally looked up at Rachel, she saw the reflection of every emotion she had been afraid to feel: love, desire, admiration, and hope, and she knew that whatever challenges came next, they would face them together, not as CEO and intern, not as observer and assistant, but as two women who had chosen each other entirely, unconditionally, and without fear of being seen. That evening, when the office emptied and the city lights blurred into gold and silver streaks through the windows, Mia and Rachel sat on the floor side by side, knees touching, hands intertwined, sharing quiet kisses that carried the weight of the week, the rain, and the promise of every tomorrow they would face together. In those moments, every fear melted away, leaving only the certainty that no matter how fragile or small Mia felt in the outside world, in Rachel's arms she was whole, she was seen, and she was loved completely. By midweek, the quiet intensity between them had grown into something that neither could ignore, a magnetic pull that made every brush of fingers, every shared glance, feel electric. Mia found herself lingering longer by Rachel's desk, her eyes tracing the curve of her shoulders, the way her hair caught the light, the subtle cadence of her voice as she gave instructions to the team. Rachel noticed. She always noticed. And that evening, after the office had emptied, Rachel invited Mia to her private office under the pretense of discussing the next day's schedule. When Mia entered, she found the room dimly lit by a single lamp, the city lights outside shimmering through the glass, casting long, intimate shadows. "Close the door," Rachel said softly, and Mia obeyed, her pulse quickening at the command, at the hush that settled around them like a secret. Rachel stepped closer, and Mia could feel the warmth radiating from her, could smell the faint scent of her perfume, soft, intoxicating. "You've been on my mind all day," Rachel admitted, her voice low, deliberate, brushing against Mia's consciousness in a way that made her knees feel weak. Mia's throat went dry. She began, but Rachel's finger pressed gently against her lips, silencing her. "Sure," Rachel whispered, "just feel." And Mia did. She felt the slow, deliberate approach of Rachel's hands, tracing the outline of her face, cupping her cheeks with a reverence that made every breath catch in her chest. Their lips met, First soft, testing, a conversation of desire and care, and then deeper, firmer, as if each kiss carried all the words they hadn't dared to speak. Mia's hands moved tentatively over Rachel's back, learning the strength beneath the silk of her blouse, the curve of her waist, the steadiness that both grounded and inflamed her. Rachel's hands tangled in Mia's hair, cradling her head, tilting her gently as their bodies pressed together, hips aligning subtly, breaths mingling, hearts hammering in unison. Every inch of distance between them disappeared, leaving only the heat, the closeness, and the awareness of being wholly seen. Rachel pulled back just slightly, forehead resting against Mia's, lips brushing the corner of her mouth. "Tell me to stop," she whispered, breath hot and intimate against Mia's skin. Mia shook her head, voice barely a whisper, "Don't." And Rachel smiled, pressing her lips to Mia's again, hands exploring, learning, affirming, a slow, deliberate dance that made every insecurity melt into trust. They sank to the floor together, knees and torsos entwined, the soft hum of the city fading until it was only them, only the rhythm of their breaths, only the careful, reverent exploration of each other's presence. Time ceased. There were no titles, no roles, no judgments, only two women discovering the full weight of desire, of care, of love that had been building in quiet moments for weeks. When they finally paused, nestled together against the floor, Mia whispered, "I've never felt this safe with anyone." Rachel's lips brushed the top of her head. "Then stay," she murmured. "Stay with me, with this, with us." And Mia knew she would, that no power, no fear, no outside voice could pull her away from this gravity that Rachel had created around her, a gravity that held her tenderly, entirely, irresistibly, in its orbit. The weekend arrived, and with it a quiet tension that neither Mia nor Rachel could ignore, a subtle unease that had been building beneath the surface for days, making every glance, every brush of hands, carry more weight than usual. Mia found herself hesitant, nervous, unsure how to reconcile the intensity of her feelings with a fear that she could somehow fall short, that she might disappoint Rachel despite every proof of care and devotion she had already received. Rachel noticed immediately the way Mia lingered in doorways, how her smiles faltered, the slight tremor in her voice during casual conversation, and she knew she needed to bridge the gap before the distance grew any larger. She caught Mia alone in the quiet office lounge, the glow of the city through the windows bathing them in soft light, and placed her hand gently on Mia's shoulder. "Talk to me," she said, her voice steady but soft. "Don't hide from me. Whatever's inside, let me in." Mia's throat tightened. She swallowed, staring at Rachel's hand over hers, the warmth radiating like a promise. "I'm scared," she admitted, "that I'm too much and not enough at the same time. That the world will push me away, and you'll realize you deserve someone else." Rachel's fingers brushed against Mia's cheek, tilting her head to meet her eyes. "Listen to me," she whispered. "You are everything I've ever wanted. I don't care about the world or their opinions or what anyone else thinks. All that matters is us. All that matters is you." Mia's chest heaved, and she felt the tight knot of anxiety start to loosen under Rachel's unwavering gaze. She leaned into Rachel, allowing herself to melt into her warmth, feeling the steadiness of the woman who had become her anchor, her gravity. Rachel kissed her softly, a kiss that carried reassurance, strength, and devotion, lingering long enough to settle all the swirling doubts. "We'll face everything together," Rachel murmured against her lips. "Every fear, every judgment, every insecurity. You are never alone in this, Mia." The words, simple and profound, wrapped around Mia like a shield, and she clung to Rachel, letting herself feel every emotion she had tried to suppress. The city beyond the glass disappeared, leaving only the intimacy of the moment, the quiet affirmation of love, and the unspoken promise that no matter what challenges came, they would face them hand in hand, heart to heart. Mia lifted her head, eyes glistening, and whispered, "I trust you. Completely." Rachel smiled, brushing a stray strand of hair from Mia's face, and kissed her again, slower this time, deliberate, reaffirming, a testament to the depth of what they shared. They sank onto the couch together, bodies entwined, fingers tracing outlines, hearts beating in sync, and Mia realized that the fear she had carried for so long didn't vanish. But with Rachel by her side, it became something bearable, something they could face together. That night, the office lights dimmed, the city lights twinkling like stars outside, and the world seemed to fall away. In Rachel's embrace, Mia found a sense of belonging she had never imagined possible, and in that shared warmth, every doubt, every insecurity, every shadow of fear was met with unwavering love. For the first time, she knew that whatever came next, she and Rachel were unbreakable together. The morning light filtered gently through Mia's bedroom window, casting warm gold across the soft sheets where she and Rachel had spent the night entwined, breaths mingling, hearts beating in sync, and for the first time, Mia didn't feel the weight of being invisible or small. Rachel's fingers traced lazy circles along Mia's arm, her lips brushing the top of her head as she whispered, "Good morning, my home." Mia smiled, lifting her head to meet Rachel's gaze, and in that look, everything they had shared, the stolen glances, the hesitant touches, the whispered fears, the whispered promises, flooded her heart with an indescribable warmth. "You make me feel brave," Mia said softly, voice trembling with emotion. Rachel leaned down, pressing her lips to Mia's, slow and deliberate, a kiss that carried gratitude, devotion, and unspoken words of love that spanned months of longing. "You've always been brave," Rachel replied, smiling into the kiss, her hands cradling Mia's face, her thumbs brushing tenderly across her cheeks. They lingered there, savoring the quiet intimacy, the gentle hum of a world that had suddenly shrunk to just the two of them. When they finally pulled back, Rachel entwined their fingers and led Mia to the kitchen, where she had prepared a simple breakfast, a small note beside it reading, "For the girl who changed my world." Mia laughed softly, feeling warmth flood her chest, a mixture of joy and disbelief at how completely her life had transformed. After breakfast, they sat by the window, wrapped in a shared blanket, watching the city come alive with movement, traffic, and noise, and yet feeling untouched by it all, cocooned in their own universe. Rachel pressed her forehead against Mia's and whispered, "I found you once, 3 years ago in the rain, and I will never let you slip away again. You're my anchor, Mia. My home. My heart." Tears slipped down Mia's cheeks, and she traced Rachel's jawline with trembling fingers, whispering, "And you're mine. Completely." They kissed again, lingering longer this time, not needing to speak, because everything was said in touch, in breath, in the rhythm of their bodies pressed together. That day, and every day after, they moved through the world side by side, hearts tethered, souls entwined, sharing quiet moments and fiery kisses, laughter and whispered confessions, proving that love, when chosen fully, fiercely, and tenderly, was unstoppable. The black umbrella sat in Mia's apartment, a silent testament to the beginning of it all, and every time she saw it, she smiled, remembering how a small act of kindness had rewritten both their lives forever. In Rachel's embrace, Mia felt safe, seen, and loved beyond measure, and in Mia's presence, Rachel found the humanity, the softness, and the joy she had been searching for all her life. There were no doubts left, no fears strong enough to shake them, only the certainty that they had found each other, and that together, they would navigate every sunrise and storm to come. And in that certainty, with rain softly falling outside and the city alive below, they kissed once more, full of promise, full of love, full of everything they had ever dared to hope for, and the world felt infinite and theirs alone. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you.